Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Alice Knapp. I'm the CEO of the Ferguson Library, and as I talk, this is your cue to silence your phones. I'm very delighted. You're going to have a wonderful afternoon today, and I just wanted to mention a couple of things. John Bruning from the Stanford Advocate is going to be here as our moderator. If you haven't read the Stanford Advocate's op-ed today, it's on a recently passed ebook bill that Connecticut is first in the state to pass. Any questions about it, don't hesitate to contact me, because this has been an ongoing issue for public libraries for about 20 years. So with that, that's just a teaser to tell you to read the op-ed. The second thing that I really want to talk about is the Friends of the Ferguson Library. I know you're all here to see Daniel Silva. Actually, that's why I'm here too. But this is actually a fundraiser for the Friends of the Ferguson Library. And they do so many good things for this library that I often say they're the secret sauce that makes this library great. For example, every child born in Stanford receives a book courtesy of the Friends of the Ferguson Library. Every year, we hold a literary competition for grades 3 through 12, and many of those young budding writers often go on to have a career in writing or just a fabulous career journaling. But in any case, it's such a fabulous experience. We feel it's sort of like the Grammys of Stanford, but for literature. Maybe the Pulitzer is probably a better way of saying it. And then all these wonderful programs that we have, it is the Friends dollars that they earn through their bookshop, so please shop there and shop there often, through their bookshop that underwrites some of our fabulous programs that we had. So getting ready for some of the summer reading club, we had a little pony at our South End branch that's at Waterside for the summer. We have all of our summer reading programs, actually, they have underwritten. So with that, I'm going to step down, because I know that's not talking, it's not why you're here, and introduce Mary Thies, who is a past president of the Friends of the Ferguson Library.
Whoa. Okay. Thank you for coming today. It's a real joy for us to have you here. A couple of pieces of business before I do the introductions. I want to remind you that on Thursday of this week, we will be sponsoring another offer event with Lisa Scudaloni. So please be sure and sign up for that. You don't want to miss it. And at the end of the talk, Mr. Silva will be signing your books over here at this table. So please line up for that. The Friends of Ferguson are delighted and honored to welcome Daniel Silva. Born in Michigan, Mr. Silva grew up in California. He began his writing career as a journalist with United Press International, serving in both Washington and the Middle East. He then worked as a producer and executive producer for CNN. While a CNN special correspondent in the Middle East, he met a lovely person named Jamie Gangle, who was also a correspondent, who is now his wife. He published his first novel in 1997, The Unlikely Spy, which went immediately onto the New York Times bestseller list and stayed there for 5 weeks. All but 3 of his subsequent novels have made that list as well. Mr. Silva introduced his beloved character, Gabriel Allen, in 2001, and since then he has appeared in now 25 novels. Mr. Silva has received 2 Barry Awards for Best Thrillers in 2007 and again in 2013, and he serves on the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council. Moderating today's event is John Bruning, an editorial page editor with Hearst Connecticut Media Group. Having worked as a reporter, a photographer, a city editor, a managing editor, a page designer, and a sports editor, John has started work at every hour of the day at one time or another. His wife cracks wise that as a Jesuit educated Libra, He weighs all sides and takes far too long to make any decision. Naturally, that has led to his current gig as editorial page editor for the Stamford Advocate and the Greenwich Time. Please join me in welcoming Daniel Silva and John Brunig.
Jesuit educated, I'm in trouble.
Of course, that's also growing up. Yeah, as a product of Catholic schools, it took a lot for me to resist wearing a tie today. Right here. You know, I am curious, because you're all here for a reason. How many, and please be honest, how many have read one of Daniel's books? Is there anybody? Okay. How many have read all of them? Wow. That's impressive.
Can I ask a question?
Can I just ask one more? How many read this series from the beginning, 25 years ago? Wow. Daniel has a question.
Can everyone hold up their books? Ready?
Wait.
Ready. Okay, ready, cheese. Oh, that's great, thank you.
That's fantastic. Well, this is the 25th book. I'll let him get his phone set, because you're going to have to give me that photo later.
I'm sending it to my social media team. But, I don't actually know how to log into my any of my accounts.
Account.
That's probably a good thing, but
There's 25 books in the series now, so if we devoted 2 minutes to every book, time would be up, right? And that's so impressive. You know, and one of the things I admire about the series is, as a writer, just the discipline it takes to stay with the character every year, to evolve it in high quality, right? I mean, you wouldn't have stayed from 1 to 25 if the quality wasn't consistent throughout. I'm in a mystery book club, and I've been in this club for like 18 years, and we pop in and out of recurring characters, but I think of Le Carré's Smiley is in 9 books, I think. Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie's character, is in 33, but that's over 55 years. You've done 25 books in 25 years. Is 25 a special number?
Thank you so much. Let me just start by saying how wonderful it is to be back here. I think this is my second visit here to Ferguson, and thank you for coming out on a sultry summer afternoon to spend a little bit of time with me. This is the first stop on the book tour. Is here at this library. We're breaking an embargo this afternoon. 2-day break of an embargo. So thank you guys for joining me this afternoon and help me launch this publication. I can't remember the question.
No, I didn't quite get there.
About writing 25?
Yeah,
is it
does
special?
the number mean
Yes, it
anything
is.
special?
And I think what's most remarkable about it is that he was supposed to appear in one book and one book only. So he was not built to be a continuing character. I didn't have any sense, as I created this very peculiar character, that he was going to be around for this long. He was supposed to literally, and I mean literally, sail off into the sunset in Cornwall at the end of that first book, never to be heard from again. And my publisher at the time, sort of a legendary figure in commercial publishing named Phyllis Grand, said, you have to write another one. And I told her I thought it was just the dumbest idea I'd ever heard.
One more, right?
There was too much anti-Israeli sentiment in the world, and frankly, too much anti-Semitism in the world for this character to ever work at a truly mass market scale. She says, you're wrong. He was works undercover. He's posing as an Italian art restorer. He's very unique. He's very different. It's going to work. And so I had a book in mind, and I plugged him into it. It was my second book. She ended up, Phyllis called it The English Assassin. It's a title that I truly loathe. I had two other titles that I wanted to call it. We had a big fight over that one. And she said to me famously, she said, "Honey, you own the book, but I own the cover." So she tells me to write my second Gabriel Allon book, and then she named the book for a character named Christopher Keller, actually, who's still around. But it really wasn't until I wrote the third book, The Confessor, that I felt, okay, I can do this for a while. And to be honest, I've had thoughts of, pausing him for a year and doing a spin-off from the series, and my publisher just, please don't, kind of thing, and my fans sort of say the same thing. And I don't know if you can tell, but I've changed the tone, put him on a new path. He's in a new place in his life. I've got the series kind of where I wanted it to be all along, and I'm having so much fun writing him right now. And I really, really am quite fond of this book and the early reception that it's getting. And so 25 books, never imagined.
Never saw that
Never.
I mean, it wasn't when I was talking about other writers, and I thought of Agatha Christie and how later on she talked about, oh, I wish I had not made my two main protagonists, Miss Marple, Perot, so old when we started. So Gabriel is pushing 50 and...
Pushing 50?
No, when he starts in the first book, am I right? He's about late 40s?
Yep.
And so he's now...
Well, he's perfectly age appropriate for what he was then.
At the time.
So he had, remember, at that point, he had been, self-imposed exile from the service for about 9 years, at that point, after from the first Gulf War until, right around the turn of the millennium. So yeah, he was exactly age appropriate for someone like that. But then, so and if I had wanted to make him younger, would I have taken the fact that he had been part of the Munich hit team out of his backstory? Is it
It's
really
a different character.
Is it really worth that? No, that makes him, all the more compelling. And so now I'm right now I'm sort of playing the little tricks on the reader, to be honest with you. I've detached him from time. For better or worse, the series was in sync, roughly in sync with the real calendar from the very beginning. It's sort of the real world once or twice removed. So now I've just detached him from the clock. And he is married to a younger woman, and he does have younger kids. And so he presents a little younger than he is. And I'm going to sort of do that Poirot thing where it doesn't matter how old they are, to be honest with you. Even if he is his exact age, he can do everything he is doing. He's an incredibly handsome, charming guy. I mean, if you bumped into him in a Baccaro, a wine bar in Venice, you'd think this is the most charming Italian gentleman of a certain age. He'd be standing there in his cashmere handmade Italian clothes with this beautiful woman on his arm and these two young kids, and you think that's just the coolest guy in the world. You wouldn't want to cross him.
May not know that.
And you wouldn't want to mess with him. But I just like this version of Gabriel Allon very much.
The place you are now, I mean, I don't think you would have anticipated 25 years ago that this is where the character would be now. And I remember reading the last book and thinking, it's very funny. And early in the book, I thought, it's just got that little Nick and Nora exchanges going on. So I felt like you were winking at me at the end when one of the characters is reading The Thin Man.
Oh, no, that's a good catch on your part. Yeah, that was very intentional. And I actually, I'd let the audience on a little secret. So there was a line in, I don't know, chapter 5 or so, where Gabriel and Kiara are talking about the case that Gabriel is working on, and I wrote the name. He referred to her as Nora in dialogue,
right.
when she wanted him to do something, and Jamie says, they're not going to get that. And I said, just let me have
this
for me, okay, just for me, because it made me laugh so hard, and we went back and forth on it for a few weeks through the editing process, and Nora came out. But yeah, by the way, I just love Nick. I love The Thin Man, and I love those two characters, and I love that genre.
And that's only
that
one
genre
book,
is
right?
Everywhere. That's Dashiell Hammett, obviously, and that genre is everywhere you look right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's Murders in the Building or the Murder Club, it's the the witty, interesting amateur sleuth. It's a subgenre of mystery.
Right.
Now, Gabriel's not an amateur sleuth by any means, but you're obviously into this genre. You can see that I'm blending genres
Now.
Yeah. I'm blending and bending genres, and this is definitely this one is a blend of part murder mystery, it's part caper novel, it's part Vatican thriller, and I would argue it's a really good love story as well.
Yeah.
But on a grand scale, I mean, Dashiell Hammett is a huge influence on me, and I love Nick and Nora Charles.
And
I like to have drinks in a Nick and Nora glass too.
And that's only one book, Nick and Nora. It's a movie series.
It's only
one book, and it's a pretty dark book.
Yeah.
All right. This is a little off topic, but I have to ask, since you're here, have you spent much time in Connecticut? I'm always curious if...
I've spent a lot of time in Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My children went to a small independent school in New Haven. I have twins, and so they went to Yale too.
They all know that.
So yeah, I've spent a lot of time here.
Do you have favorite parts of Connecticut?
Stamford.
Oh,
my God! Well, I have a lot of family in Stamford, and I have to be honest with you. I'm very fond of New Haven, and I'm crazy about Westport. I love Westport.
I was thinking, and please, somebody can jump in later, but I was thinking about, and I didn't know that, what would be interesting to you about this area? And then I realized the Glass House, the art at the Philip Johnson's Glass House in New Haven, Maurice Sendak, I once wrote about him working in Rowayton in Norwalk. William F. Buckley lived here in Stamford and used this library.
It's a very important
figures.
Literary state.
And, I once wrote a column about Maxwell Perkins' house in New Canaan, right at the end of the New Canaan train line. That's where he was editing Gatsby. But then I thought, of all things, everybody who walked up here today past the WPA painting in the hallway. How many of you know the story behind those paintings? That they were painted during the 1930s as a mural and then found in a dumpster and had to be restored. So I could not have named you any art I know that had to be restored, but one is you'll pass on the way out from here. So
yeah, I put actually in a book a few books ago called "Portrait of an Unknown Woman." I don't want to spoil it. It had a Westport character.
Yes. Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Did you spoil it for anyone here? I joke even on your book flap, it will now describe him as art restorer and spy. There might be an adjective there. And I always think that's such a sly thing, right? To put spy second. And yet, for us as readers, it almost feels like you pulled us in with a spy. But over 25 years, I almost feel like he's educated us about art a little bit. I mean, how much of that is intentional?
Well, I guess in terms of where the character is now, for 20 books, he was a intelligence officer who had a very interesting cover job. You know, he
Right.
worked as an art restorer under an assumed identity. And so he's posing as this very quiet, reclusive guy named Mario Del Vecchio, and restoring paintings under that name. Now, he's emerged, you know, he is coming from the cold and is out in the world as Gabriel Lon. He's finally getting his due. So he's a world-renowned art restorer who used to be a spy, and it's a subtle but not unimportant difference in the way it is now. But you know, he has all of these connections all over across Europe in terms of law enforcement and intelligence and all these interesting people that he's picked up over the years. And he is a very compelling character, but I would argue that the cast of characters around him is actually the secret sauce of the series. And they range from British prime ministers to the Pope. He has Anna Rolfe, you know, the famous violinist. It's the supporting cast of characters that make the series. And
I hear
right
names
now,
coming from the audience.
and Ingrid Johansson is my favorite right now. This master thief who he's working with. She's a cool chick.
Are there any other favorites? Christopher. I'm hearing a lot of Christophers out there. There's obviously a little push for your spin-off.
I've always he was the first one I really wanted to spin off, and I still might, to have him have his own books. No?
Is that a... Whoa.
Yeah.
I think you misheard that.
Yeah. I might do that.
That's a lobby. That's a challenge, though, right? Because then do you feel the push and pull, just emotionally, not from an editor, of I've had this thing going for 25 years. Do I take a break and do a spin-off? Do I take a break and do a movie? Do I take
You're going after my weak spots here. I mean, look, every writer who has the gift of a long-running series, you know, thinks about doing other things. I can't imagine. I mean, Lee Child famously said, you know, never gave one thought to writing anyone other than Jack Reacher. That's just not. You know, I never planned on writing a series to begin with. So I guess that the flip side of it is, yes, I think about it, but yeah, I would miss him. And I have a lot of fun writing Gabriel Lon. I mean, you're talking about, you know, that the books have a lot of humor in them, you know, sort of dark humor, and they're funny. I mean, Jamie hears me in the next room. I'm cracking myself up sometimes. Now, I'm not cracking myself up at what I'm writing. It's what I'm hearing in my head that they're saying to each other.
Because they're talking to you.
Yeah, they don't talk to me. I just sort of eavesdrop on them. And that's the way I like to. I tried to explain this in an interview on NPR a couple of years ago, and Scott Simon suggested that I get medical attention immediately. But for me, when it's really working, and I never write a scene without visualizing it and thinking it through, and hearing it before I write it. That, you know, I feel like I'm just, if I'm doing my job correctly and setting the scene correctly, I just have to sort of listen to what they're saying to one another. And that's how real they are to me. I see you're giving me the same thought that Scott had. Like, you're going to call the men in white coats off to Bellevue.
Does the chaos of the world right now, does it make it easier or harder for you to look toward the next book and the next book?
The chaos of the world right now is something that I'm actually, you know, doing my best to try to avoid, to be honest with you. You know, I thought for about 2 days about writing putting Gabriel into this current situation in the Middle East, and decided not to. Our politics are so divisive that there are some subjects, no matter what you write, someone's going to take offense, and I'm just going to sort of sit some of this out for a little bit.
I've enjoyed, I'm hearing, appreciation for that.
No, I mean, I think that we all need a break.
A break. One of the breaks, I feel like the books have an old-fashioned sense of literature in terms of being travelogues in a way that I've appreciated, sort of surfing the globe in the novels. And I've wondered, has that had rewards for you? Have you thought, I need to do more research and take the family
I think the reward is that part of it. I did take my children on many, many research trips with me, including to the Vatican. When I wrote the climactic sequence a few years ago of a book called House of Spies, we just jumped on a plane at winter break and went to Morocco, and I wrote the ending over there, driving around the country. So the travel has been for the children and the time we've spent together, intentional, purposeful travel, and that I'm with sources and they're listening to what's going on. I think they got a great deal out of it, and you'll probably notice that I dedicate every single book to her and the children. I think that the only thing harder than writing a novel on deadline is being married to or being the child of a writer on deadline. I once saw this documentary on Ernest Hemingway, and Jack was talking about his father, and it's like, his most enduring memory of his dad is this gigantic man standing on the balcony of a villa saying, "Will you please be quiet so I can get some work done?" I swore that I wasn't going to be that person. I did my best, but I don't think it was necessarily easy to be married to, or to be the children of a writer. But we did have some great adventures together.
How did that journey go? I'm guessing at some point your kids started reading your books. I mean, you started writing them before you had the kids.
Yeah,
How did that journey go?
My son reads me. My daughter, she just wants to pretend that part doesn't exist, but her husband reads me.
Interesting.
Yeah, but she doesn't want to read my books.
Is your wife in the room?
She's right there.
I lost her here. Can somebody give her a mic? Anthony?
Oh, no.
No,
Don't give her.
I don't think she'll be afraid. I feel like there's an obligation to review this ground, and I feel like you get tortured with it in front of audiences like this of your process. So for somebody like me, the way you write the book, and most of you probably do know this, is a fascinating process, but you must be sick of telling it. So I'm wondering if I can hear it through the other end of the lens. If your wife could tell us about the pencil on the floor and the.
This is so dangerous. First of all, John, I want you to know I've been sitting back here writing down every question you're asking him, because you're absolutely brilliant, and thank you so
You're
much
stalling.
for doing this. No, really. So, Daniel's a little eccentric, and I just think it's important to know that when you write a book a year, you literally only have 6 months because of the publication schedule. And it starts in September, and he's very calm and nice. January 1st, not so much. But as I like to say, some of you may have heard this story, so forgive me, when we were here a couple of years ago, but his wife told me she built a beautiful big desk in a lovely office. Daniel, where do you write?
I write on the floor. And I have a desk lamp on the floor. I have, you know, pencils. I lie between the speakers of my beautiful English sound system. So I try not to bring telephones in here, but if you look at Google Muriel Spark, the author of Miss Jean Brodie, the photograph that will pop up is Muriel lying on the floor with her manuscript. So I'm not the only one who works that way. Yeah. And so that's just the way I like to work. So I do write in longhand, in pencil. The late Nelson DeMille was also a longhand writer. He used a number 1. I use a number 2. And then I
What brand? So you get
I like
yes.
I use Murado Black Warriors, but I also I love Ticonderogas, the old schoolboy Ticonderogas. And then so when I cleaned out my daughter's room, when she moved out, I found her stash from when she was a kid, and so I have enough pencils, I think, to last the rest of my career. So that's the way I do it. So I write big hunks in longhand, and then I'll take that over to the computer, enter it, and then make that transition to original composition at the keyboard. I have never successfully been able to outline a novel. Right. And so I don't even make mental notes, but I never write anything down. I mean, sometimes when I know, everything that's going to happen, I'll just sit down with her and have an "in case I die" conversation. Like someone can try to finish this manuscript, but I guess that I get started as quickly as she said September. I start in June. Like the minute I'm done with the last one, with the final edit, I have to start the next book. It's the only way I can get the other one out of my head. And so I start working on the next one, and just work very, very slowly in June before book tour. Just I knocked out 50 pages of just working, about half time in very slowly finding my way into a story. And I do have to say that I write the book sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. One scene informs the next, and that's the way I find my way through it. And so sometimes I'll take a wrong turn or make a decision, and I'll go back and write over it. So I've likened it to a bit like the way Caravaggio painted. He froze those people in place in front of them and lit them with a single source. Don't move. And he painted like that. And so he'd make mistakes and cover them up and paint over them. If you to see that in the Deposition of Christ, the incredible painting that's at the Vatican, they're like Jesus's right hand that hangs like this. He couldn't get it right. So he finally went and looked at the Pietà, looked at the way Michelangelo did it in the statue, and he took that hand and put it in there. But if you could look underneath there, you can with X-ray, you can see all these hands down there. If you could X-ray one of my books, you'd see the equivalent of lots of other hands.
If I X-rayed your notebooks, would I see doodles anywhere on the side?
No.
Never? No, you're not a doodler.
No, but you would see entire passages without a single edit. And I can't do that at a keyboard.
But you can do it on paper.
I cannot do it at a keyboard. But slowing down, being quiet, slowing the pace at which the words are coming onto the actual page, much different.
Yeah.
So it just works for me.
It's so.
And Tyler does a trick where she writes when she gets her first draft done, or when she gets the book done, she takes that typescript and writes it out in longhand. Why? Because slowing it down exposes false notes and things
true.
like that, and excess verbs. We read it aloud over and over again.
I do that, yeah.
But her trick is to take a typescript and write it out in longhand. Even I'm not that crazy.
Just crazy enough,
Yeah.
right? You mentioned speakers, though. You sit between speakers?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you play music?
No, between hi-fi. So yeah, I listen to some classical music and soundtrack music, mainly to try to cover up the noise around me. I'm very sensitive to noise. My wife is the world's loudest talker. She worked for CNN, in case anyone
So
doesn't
has
know.
to, yeah.
As we like to call it, she's a one-woman breaking news machine. And when she's on the phone, she is really loud. And then now she likes to wear her earbuds so she can't hear me when I'm saying, please be quiet. It's really fun to be in its house with us together when we're both working.
I have since college. If I can't find quiet, I do the opposite and go somewhere very loud, because then if I have to write, because then it just becomes white noise.
Yeah.
I imagine that would be a nightmare for you.
But as I was a journalist, I mean, you could set a bomb off next to me. I could write breaking news situations in chaotic newsrooms. But fiction is a different animal.
Yeah.
I am in a semi-dream state all day long. I'm wandering around, barely connected to this world, and I can't do it when there's noise.
You barely eat during that?
I do not eat. No, really.
Yeah. This may be a dead-end question. Among your fans, do you occasionally, over the years, encounter surprise fans, interesting people, celebrity people, or people who are not fans? Or...
You know, I consider myself, I'm so lucky. I have the most wonderful readers, and yeah, I have a lot of celebrities who read me and like me, but I'm happier to be here, you know, with my normal readers, regular readers. But yeah, I do. Look, I have a pretty darn erudite fan base.
Yeah.
Most of my readers are very educated, very successful. Most of them do things that are a lot more interesting than what I do, and I just have I have really great readers. I just love my readers. They're so very smart and intelligent. Most of them.
This is maybe a in the weeds writing question, but one of the things I admire about your writing is, well, you surprise me, but I think there are such conscious and subtle choices made about your narrative voice, and you take us to different places so that we can see your cast of characters through different eyes. And I have to think you can start a passage and think, I have to switch. Are you pivoting as you're writing longhand, or do you sort of know which voices to summon, which perspectives to summon?
No, I do have a very distinct style, I think, and I do try to capture the voice of a character in the way that the narration lies on the page. For example, so when Sarah Bancroft is on the page, she has a very distinct voice. I'm writing from her point of view. Okay, I'm a stickler for point of view.
Yeah.
And so when I'm writing in the point of view of a character, well, it needs to sound like the way that character thinks. And Julian Isherwood, for example, is probably my favorite point of view to write from. He's a elegant, charming, funny, everything goes wrong all the time kind of guy. He's just my favorite, and I love writing from Sarah's point of view. And Gabriel, of course, has the best pair of eyes in the business. He's just, he's a magical point of view because he sees life as though it's a painting all the time. But that's very, point of view is everything. And then I will occasionally slip into, God's eye omniscient, rise above the story a little bit. Try to
use that rarely, but
just rise up see what the story looks like from 30,000 feet, and with that, what people around the world actually know what's going on about what's happening on the page.
I think about the first book in the series and how if you wrote that now, technology would change so many things, right? The tracking devices and everything. Does that put pressure on you to stay a little ahead of the curve in terms of possibilities with AI, with technology?
I'm going to try not to incorporate AI, but right now, I was fortunate in that I got a very, very good briefing pretty early when intelligence services really figured out how to turn our phones and turn them against us. And if you read the Rembrandt Affair, when we talked about gaining control of somebody's devices before that really burst into the public view. And so I've been fortunate with some good sourcing to at least be able to fake it like I'm on top of it. Now I have to say that I have to account for technology and use technology, but at the same time I abhor it and I abhor writing about it. So I want the books to have that old-fashioned feeling and not be overwhelmed by the technology of the day. I mean, there's nothing more old-fashioned than trying to fix a 15th century painting. I mean,
you have such a, as you're dancing around referencing the different books, I think you have to maintain such a grip on what you've written about in the past. Do you make editors crazy with ensuring the consistency that you haven't?
I just make editors crazy. It's period. No, I take care of all that, and so that the challenge is how do you write about a character when your readership knows everything? And so I have to try to write the stories at 2 or 3 different levels, okay? I have to write the story so that a new reader can understand them. I have to write the stories so that someone who's read them all doesn't flip through this part because they don't need to read this part. I have to write it for the readers, and they do exist, who reread every book before the next one comes out, so they know everything much, much better than I do at this point. And so, how do you
do exist there?
How do you structure each scene, each reference, introduce each character in a way that suits that every single segment of your readership? It's a challenge.
I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. I think, Anthony, we should probably open this up, and please don't challenge him on any mistakes. So,
yes, sure. I'll just repeat the questions if that's okay.
Oh, I could.
Books. Sorry. And the amount of research that goes into understanding Russian oligarchs, what Mossad would do next, what's happening in Washington. Can you describe your research process?
Can I describe how much research? The research is a combination of let me start with this. Answer it this way: I'm either writing a book or reading a book all day long. Okay, that's the way I live my life. I read constantly. So I do targeted research. I talk to people. I do for this new novel. It was mainly book research with mixed in with some conversations with Leonardo experts, and so it's a hybrid. It's tailored for each specific writing project, and I love research. Look, Gabriel. The thing about Gabriel is that he's a sort of a selfish character in that he allows me to indulge all of my passions. art, music, history of the Middle East, the history of the Holocaust, and I have an immense library. I don't know what I'm going to do with it when I go pause up, but I just just as I said, I just either writing a book or reading a book all day long. Yes, ma'am. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I choose them pretty carefully. So Gabriel was a very carefully chosen name. Wanted him to, I gave him the name of an archangel, and then so Alon just it just got a certain rhythm to it. The rhythm of a name has to be correct. And it's a type of oak tree. It's a name for oak tree in Israel. It's a common name. It's an easy name for anyone to pronounce, and it just worked. Christopher Keller, the way it flows, it's mellifluous, it flows. Sarah Bancroft. So I work hard on them, and then I work hard on them, and then oh no, you can't call the character this, have to change her name to this, and so we actually slug it out over character names actually because we try to get them right. That's all, and then the one thing I try to avoid is the really silly sounding character names. I just don't go for those kinds of overly, the type I'm referring to. Yes, ma'am. Hi. Sure. Sure. So she's talking about the prescience at time of the series, and so I think that in the international thriller, like the worst thing that you can be is to be behind the curve, to have events in the real world surpass you. For example, if I had tried to write, about Israel and Iran in the nuclear program right now, who would have guessed? I mean, I'm pretty good. I don't have an actual crystal ball, but I'm pretty good. I could not have foreseen that the Israelis would start attacking the facilities and drag the United States, which was always one of their plans, by the way, but to induce the United States into attacking Fordo. And so you have to think like a spy, think like an intelligence officer. Like if you're an intelligence officer, you're the director of the CIA, you don't want to come into the Oval Office and tell the president what happened today. You want to tell the president what's going to happen a year from now or 5 years from now. And see, I have to sort of think that way too. Otherwise, things are going to be, dated. I think that some of the things I got right. I mean, I'm proudest that I got Vladimir Putin right before anyone else in government did, and we kept trying over and over and over again to convince ourselves that Vladimir Putin was this Russian Thomas Jefferson, and if we just engage him, everything's going to be great. And I was saying, no, it's not. This is who he is. This is what he wants. And we have to start drawing some boundaries, as we say to our kids. But I say even I was still stunned when he invaded Ukraine. I knew that something was coming. I knew that he was going to start grabbing some of the old empire back. I couldn't believe it when he did that. So that's the first part. And then in terms of the film, I had a deal with MGM. It was the dream deal. And then when Me Too hit, it really scrambled Hollywood for a while, and no one associated with my project had any Me Too issues, but it just threw everything into a chaos. And then COVID, but they fell behind schedule. The rights reversed. So right now I have the rights. I have to say, given the current climate right now, I'm not sure about it. Yes, sir. How do I develop the next storyline? Fear, panic. Panic. I mean, I have this little card with some general things that I'd like to get to. I carry around in my head story ideas, and if I'm firing on all cylinders, it'll rise to the top what I want to do next as I'm finishing a book. Once I, break into clear air and I can see the runway down there, the other part of my brain will start working on the next one, and so something will just rise to the top. When that shuts down, then I'll start to worry. But I say at this point in my career, it's being very careful what I choose to do next every single year, more and more careful because I'm getting older and there are fewer books to write. But it just sort of happens naturally, I think. Best way I can describe it. Yes, ma'am. No. No, it's not. It's just who the characters are. I mean, I feel sorry for the people who live at 16 Narcus Street in Jerusalem. Because it's a tour bus goes by every day with a speaker. And there's where Gabriel Allon lives. But
the driver is a child.
I hope that. But if you look closely, there's not that much pure traveling. That's just where the books are set. They're accurate, and I'm tricking you with point of view so that it makes you feel like you're there. That's all it is. It's just a magic trick. It's a spell. And so you think you're there. And now because most of us read a book with our phone in our hand, we go click, 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 and say, oh, that's what it looks like when you're at that cafe in the Louvre, for example, and you're looking across the courtyard at the pyramid, or if you're walking through the Tuileries Gardens, but it's just a magic trick. Where? Yeah, he's got a nice crib. Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, but to have him, go through a book, with being trailed by bodyguards or something like that, it would really be a drag, so I've kind of just let that fall by the wayside at this point. I mean, the little spoiler for much of this book, we're not really sure whether he's even armed anymore.
In this book?
Yeah.
I'm afraid we have one more question, but this man has been very quick. Yes?
I mean, my inspiration, my tastes are really all literary, and I'm inspired by. This one has a couple of very funny, I hope, Gatsby references in there. I love Fitzgerald. I love George Orwell. I love Graham Greene. And so I draw from literary influences, good pulp fiction. I love Sidney Sheldon. when I was a kid. I read all my mom's Sidney Sheldon books. I thought he was incredible. I love classic British mystery. We were talking about Agatha earlier. I love all that stuff. And those are all the sort of kinds of books that go into a Daniel Silva novel. But we were talking about music. I'm incredibly influenced by music. I'm incredibly influenced by visual things, art influences my books.
I always felt like the Gatsby reference is there from the beginning with the lantern, with the light.
Oh, sure.
Right? And today, Daniel starts the book tour here, but now you're going to the other end of the Gatsby light across Long Island, right? So we do need to wrap up, but thank you.
Thank you
this
so
has been
much.
lovely.
What a pleasure. Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you.